Hi, this is Rabbi Chaim Coffman. Welcome to our 41st installment in the Torah portion of the week. We're holding by Parshas Pinchas. There's a lot to talk about Pinchas, so we'll start right at the beginning. Book of Numbers, chapter 25, verse 16. It says, Hashem spoke to Moshe, saying, Pinchas, son of Elazar, son of Aaron the Kohen, turn back my wrath from upon the children of Israel, when he zealously avenged my vengeance among them, so I did not consume the children of Israel in my vengeance. Therefore say, behold, I will give him my covenant of peace. It shall be for him and his offspring after him a covenant of eternal priesthood, because he took vengeance for his God, and he atoned for the children of Israel. Name of the slain Israelite man who was slain with a Midianite woman, Zimri, son of Salu, leader of a father's house of the Shimonites, of the tribe of Shimon. And the name of the slain Midianite woman was Cosbi, daughter of Tzur, who was head of the people of the father's house in Midian. So again, chapter 25, verse 16, verses 10 to 15. So Pinchas comes along at the end of last week's Parshas Balach, and he asked Moshe Rabbeinu, what is the law when it comes to this case where a man brought a Midianite woman in the sight of Moshe, in the sight of the entire assembly, right? He wanted to transgress with her, and Moshe didn't know, so Pinchas came. It says, Pinchas, son of Elazar, son of Aaron, he stood up from the assembly, took a spear, and he killed him. Right then, so the Torah recapitulates a little bit that he took vengeance. And even though children of Israel were consumed, he said, behold, he gave a covenant of peace to Pinchas. And Pinchas avenged God's vengeance on them, and he killed Zimri, son of Saul, who was the head of the tribe of Shimon, and killed the Midianite woman Cosbi bat Tzur, the daughter of Tzur, who was the head of the people of a father's house in Midian. So there's an obvious question, and this is the Torah portion that speaks about a zealot. So we see a lot of things going on today, especially in radical Islam. People zealous for Allah, and they'll kill in His name, thinking they'll get 70 virgins, in the next world. It's a good question if they send a woman to do it, what exactly she gets, but that's, we're not going to get into that, but that's a different issue. Anyway, Pinchas, so what's the difference? What's the difference over here between what Pinchas does and what, these so-called Muslim zealots, fanatics, whatever you want to call them, since they're doing it for the sake of God. Pinchas does it for the sake of God. So, what's the difference? So we have to understand, we certainly have to understand what does it mean? What does it mean to be a kanoi? Right here, a kanoi means a zealot. That's how we normally translate it. And not only that, but God says, because of what he did, I turned my covenant of peace. I give him my covenant of peace. He just shish kebabbed, Cosbi bat Tzur, Cosbi the daughter of Tzur, the Midianites, and he shish kebabbed Zimri, the son of Salu, who was the leader of Shevet Shimon, right, of the tribe of Shimon, right? He kills him, takes his spear, and shish kebabs him. So Talmud says there are a number of miracles that occur for Pinchas because he was liable for a death penalty. Had Zimri killed him, would have been, he would have been exempt, because someone who comes to chase you, to kill you, you kill him first. I mean, better to injure him or wound him, but if no choice, you kill him. In this case, he certainly could have got killed along the way, not just by Zimri, by others, right? He had the status of a rodef, of a pursuer. What's the status of a pursuer? You kill him, right? You stop him from pursuing. How do you stop him? You do whatever you can. If you have to kill him, you kill him. It's, sometimes it could be a first resort. It's usually a last resort. You don't want to kill him if you don't have to. So this whole thing really, doesn't make a whole lot of sense, in a way that Pinchas sort of acts on his own, and God agrees with what he did. He gives him covenant of peace. So again, we have to understand all these factors together in order to get a clearer picture of what exactly is going on. So when we mention about someone who is a zealot, someone who acts for the sake of God, for heaven's sake, he wants to do it for the right reason. Now, one thing we learn over here is that Pinchas asked Moshe, what's the law? What is the halacha? What are we supposed to do in such a case? And this is one of the few times Moshe didn't know, right? There are certain halachas that Moshe forgot. This was one of them. So Pinchas says, I remember, shish kebab them. Right? That's kind of funny. I can do the mitzvah of shish kebab. No. But that's what he did. Again, he could have been killed in the process. Had he been killed in the process, you can't have any claims against the person who did it, because he should be liable as being a rodef. So a zealot, someone who's a zealot, or what we'll call a zealot, people will translate that as a fanatic. Nonetheless, Pinchas stands up for Torah. There's an absolute desecration of God's name. Here you have the head of the tribe. And again, these questions I think the questions are much better than the answer, because you have the head of a tribe who, transgresses with this Midianite woman in public, right? Bad enough what he do behind closed doors, but he has to do it in public, right? He has to show what he's going to do in public. There's no, he doesn't care what God thinks, doesn't care what the people thinks. This is the head of a tribe. He's not one of the lackeys that, one of the younger ones or whatever. He also saw miracles in the desert. He also saw God face to face on the mountain. So it's extremely hard to understand. The simple explanation is he got carried away. Right? He got carried away with desire. We saw that by Korach. His desire was kavod, was honor. Kavod, money. Power, prestige. That destroyed him, literally. Right? Took him out of this world. So here, desire, right? Strongest desire that's given to man is a sexual desire. So you might say, well, God gave you this strong desire, and the person transgresses with it. Well, what do you want from me? God gave me the most powerful desire. Yeah, he did. But he gave you a way to harness it. Didn't want you to become like an animal, right? An animal, shacks up with his female or male counterpart, right? Whenever they want. They're programmed DNA. They do whatever they do. So we have an animalistic soul. Part of our soul is an animalistic soul. But doesn't mean we always have to act on it, right? Doesn't mean that anytime we want to be with our spouse, we're allowed to, right? There's certain times you're not allowed to be, with your spouse. So therefore, you can't, man cannot treat his wife, pardon for the expression, like a piece of meat. Reason is because, there's certain times that they can't be together. And if they can't be together, so you got to treat her like a human. You got to speak to her. You have to have more of a deep relationship, because once the physical starts to fizzle, or you get older, you don't look the same or whatever. So, it's not necessarily the same. You look for, greener pastures, someone younger, someone more vitality, someone, whatever. We always think that, something that's forbidden to us is always much better, which the Talmud does say, that mayim genuvim yimtaku, that stolen waters are the sweetest, because if there's somebody that you can't be with, the desire is much stronger than if someone is permissible. Imagine, someone lives together before they get married, right? So once they get married, more than 70% end up in divorce. All of a sudden now you have a piece of paper. So now you have a piece of paper. What happened? You've been living together for years, right? The guy's sort of been milking the cow for free, no pun intended. And, he's having a great time. He's got no obligation. He can just walk out, so now he's legally married. Now he's got a piece of paper. Now he's got all these obligations if, God forbid he gets divorced or anything else. So now, he's liable. So that kind of takes all the fun, out of things because, before it was much freer. It was much, I don't have any responsibility. Person could walk away, so to speak. So the desire is given, even if it's a strong desire, in order for us to harness it. So that means that if a person uses this force properly, so then, they'll have a proper marriage, all things being equal. It's not a guarantee, but, if a person, has a deep connection, to their spouse and, they connect at multiple levels, not just the physical level, so that marriage, if it's worked on, should succeed. Right? Because they have a mutual connection that's outside the physical. If it's only physical, if there's no physicality, then what happens? If there's no physicality, then, it sort of disappears. You don't treat each other the same, you don't look at each other the same, you don't speak, and, and that can certainly be detrimental, to a marriage. So they say, well, we can't blame Zimri over here because, he couldn't control himself. Well, one of the universal Noahide laws, and happens to be a Torah command as well, that is, you're not allowed to be immoral, right? There are people you're not allowed to be with. So, obviously he understood this, right? Obviously, it made sense to him, but, stolen waters are much more sweet. So, therefore, his desire killed him, literally, right? More than literally, he got shish kebabbed. Right, so getting shish kebabbed obviously is not so pleasant. So that is going to be held against him. He could say, "Well, God, you gave me this desire. You gave mankind all this, this strong desire. So what could I do? I acted on my desire." God said, "But you idiot! Don't you know there are laws? Right? There are laws that I gave down at Mount Sinai. You're not allowed to do that. Right? You're only allowed to be with your spouse. You're not allowed to be with anyone else. It's forbidden to you." Right, in general terms, it's a Torah prohibition. Get the death penalty. Right, so why do you think that it should be permissible? Well, maybe he's not saying it's permissible, but he's saying, what can I do? I was under onus. My desire, got a hold of me. Onus Rachmana Patre. If I'm onus, the Torah says I'm exempt. So what do you want from me? so Phinehas asks Moshe, what's the halacha? Moshe forgets the halacha. Phinehas says, oh, I remember, and he shish kebabs him. Right? He kills them. That is the halacha. I mean, obviously it doesn't apply today. We don't have a Sanhedrin, we don't have a temple, but that is the halacha. Now, one thing to keep in mind, and that is, even if he acts for the sake of heaven. This is a difficult thing, because the reality is, you have somebody who's the head of a tribe. He takes this non-Jewish woman. Right? It's an absolute desecration of God's name. No question about that. So now he comes in and, he acts like the judge and gives over judgment. Meaning, he shish kebabs them. So, why is he allowed to do that? Right? Why? According to this, if Pinchas is the ultimate zealot, the ultimate quote-unquote fanatic, right? He's the ultimate fanatic. Nonetheless, he does something that God says, yeah, good job. Not only is it a good job, God says He gives them a covenant of peace. Now let's backtrack. So, Phinehas kills them. There's now peace in the world. These other quote-unquote zealots doing it for the sake of Allah and the 70 virgins in the next world, they say, now I've killed somebody, and, well, they may end up dead, so it might not help them, but, if they get away with it, that's great, now there's peace in the world. No, they'll look for more people to kill. Right? That doesn't bring peace. I mean, they think, okay, we'll wipe out these infidels, someone else will come and wipe out these other infidels, try and wipe out everyone. Get rid of everyone off the face of the map, we're infidels. Right? There's going to be millions, billions of people going to die. that's going to bring, it's going to bring peace. Won't be anybody left, right? If it goes according to that. So now so again, we really have to understand, what he did. And then we'll get to the covenant of peace. So, back to Phinehas' action. Phinehas understood, obviously, this was wrong. He understood that something had to be done. It was an absolute desecration of God's name. Now, he does it for no other reason than for the sake of heaven. Now, obviously, you have to be on Phinehas' level to do that. Some people will scream that they're doing it for the sake of heaven, but the reality is, it's an absolute desecration of God's name. And it's just, utterly disgusting what some people will do, within the Orthodox community and say, yeah, they're doing it for the sake of heaven. So doing it for the sake of heaven allows you to malign other people, right? Allows you to destroy the reputation of other people. It allows you, obviously it doesn't, right? It allows you, to send a box to one of the Torah giants of this generation with his books all ripped up. Yeah, they're doing it for the sake of heaven. Okay, they disagree with the stance that this Torah giant took. Fine, that gives you a right to malign him. That gives you a right to rip up his books. People are, so you say, they're doing it for the sake of heaven. No, they're not. Which rabbi, which of their Das Torah, of the rabbi that they ask advice from, would tell them to do such a thing? Nobody. They act on their own. They want to be the Phinehas of this generation. That's how you go about it. You got to be 100% pure inside. You can't just do what you want. Right? Phinehas got away with it, and it was sanctioned by God, and that was okay. But he checked himself once, twice, 3 times, 5 times, 100 times to make sure there was no tinge of getting revenge. Because if you act like a Phinehas, there may be something missing there, that you're not doing it for the right reason. You're not doing it for the sake of heaven. And if you don't do it for the sake of heaven, that's a tremendous transgression. Not to mention, if you malign people, you rip up their books, and, whatever the case is. Right? That's even worse. It's a tremendous desecration of God's name. So they say, but how could they do it? How in the world could they make that mistake? Because they're crazy. As they say in Spanish, they're loco en la cabeza. They're crazy. They have no Das Torah. They have no one who they ask their questions to. So they do what they want. Right? Kind of like a mafia in a certain way. Is it right? Of course not right. They're acting on their own. You say, well, Phinehas acted on his own. So again, we're going to make a very big distinction here. The distinction is that it has to be done for the purity of the soul. With the purity of soul. Meaning, you have no other ulterior motives. It's not about revenge. It's not about because a person disagreed with me. It's not about anything. It's about doing Ratzon Hashem. Doing what God wants from me. That's it. Right? It's really not that complicated. It is more complicated because then a person has to know in their heart of hearts, is that, are they doing it for the right reason? This is one of the reasons that as great as Phinehas was, he was not chosen to lead the Jewish people into the land of Israel. Who was chosen? Yoshua. Right? Joshua was chosen by Moshe. Or really, God told Moshe to anoint Yoshua, to anoint Joshua in order to take the Jewish people in. Now, you might ask, what Phinehas did. Look how great Phinehas was. He was. Right? That there's no question. But you need somebody like Yoshua that sat by Moshe 24 hours a day. And he learned how to lead. And he learned what to do and what to say and how to say and all this. He learned what it meant to be a leader. Phinehas acted on his own. His desire was true. What his inner self told him to do was the right thing to do. But having someone like that, as a leader, not homegrown, meaning hadn't learned the finer aspects, of leadership, you can't have someone like that be a leader. Might be a great warrior, might be a good head of the army or a general or whatever, but he's not going to be a leader. You can't take things into your own hands. Right? Pinchas is allowed to. Right? He's the exception, not the rule. Now, even though Phinehas does it, again, he could have been killed. And had he been killed, we would have, whoever killed him, it would have been a mitzvah to kill him. So there are a number of miracles that occur that he doesn't die in the process. So if we act on our own, right, so that's a bad thing. We always have to think, if what I'm doing right now, does it make me better? Does it make me more spiritual or not? I'm either going up or down. If I'm stagnant, I'm dead, spiritually. So I have to ask myself, or we have to ask ourselves, and what I'm doing now, is it good for my soul or bad? So you can judge that for yourself. If it's a gray area and you're not sure, so probably don't do it. Ask a proper rabbinical authority, mentor, somebody, whether it should be done or it shouldn't be done. And then they'll tell you, okay, yes, it's good for you, it's bad for you, and then you're going to do accordingly. But you should never, ever act on your own. If you know something to be true, and you know what the halach is, it's one thing. It's going to depend on what the magnitude of what you're going to do. And if it's something that's going to be big, you have to ask a big Torah authority to see, is it a good thing, is it a bad thing? Because they see things much more differently than you do. And obviously that is why you have to have a proper mentor, proper rabbi, etc., that you go for advice, because they see things that you don't. Because we are no geya, we are biased. We have our own biases. So we may think, oh, this is a great mitzvah, and this is something I have to do, and blah, 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 when in the end, it's not. Because we're driven by different motives. And the motive may not be 100% legit, meaning it comes from anger, or it comes from jealousy, or it comes from honor, or it comes from all three, or it comes from who knows what. But it's not coming from the right source. Right? So a proper rabbinical authority will tell you that. I mean, if he doesn't know, then you go to someone else. If you're not sure what to do. That's why we always have to ask advice, of our sages before we act. Right? If we have a doubt about something, we're not sure, we have to get clarification. Because there are certain things that we may look at, that they may look at that we might not have thought of. Some X factor or, other things that we may not have, thought of. So, I've heard many people say, and this is really not the topic for now, but I've heard people say that, you have to ask your rabbi for everything, maybe like to cross the street or to blow your nose, you have to ask him his opinion. No. Right? But a person needs someone to guide them. They need someone to give them direction. It doesn't mean that, you can't make decisions on your own. Right? They'll give you the tools to help you do that. They'll give you advice which way. They see that how do they know? Maybe they're fallible. They are. They can make mistakes. But they have a whole wide range of knowledge that most people don't. And because most people don't have that knowledge, so we go to them. They are our spiritual guides. They tell us what's good, what's bad. We may have some doubts. We clarify. Again, doesn't mean they're perfect. We don't worship them. We worship the Torah that they know. Not the person themselves. That's idolatry, according to everybody. Right? But, I've seen, I don't know if I'll give any examples, but I'm just saying that, I've seen in my own life that people, I've asked certain questions to and, gotten advice from, they have a whole wealth of knowledge, and have shown things that I didn't necessarily think of. Or there are other factors involved I wouldn't have, I certainly wouldn't have been aware of. What's the matter? You can't make your own decision? But these people are greater than me. Right? They're the ones giving you guidance. They're giving you spiritual life, so to speak. They've been around a lot longer than me. So, if they've been around 30, 40, or 20, 25, 30 years longer than me or more, I got to tip my hat, give them respect, because they've been around longer, they've been learning longer, so they have more knowledge, right? That there's no question. So acting on your own is totally forbidden. Depending what it is. If it's something we know and we know what the halacha is, okay. So if it's about getting guidance how to guard ourselves against different things or whatever, so we can go to them. If we have specific questions, how to deal with certain issues, that's who we go to. Those are our spiritual guides. We don't, if it's something so important, you're not going to act on your own. For instance, give one example. You had money to invest in the stock market. Let's say it's a significant amount. That's where you want to put it. You want to put it in the stock market. And you don't know that much about the stock market. Who are you going to go to? You're going to go to a broker. You'll find someone, been involved in the stock market, who knows what's going on. Right? And you get their advice. Is it a good thing? Is it a bad thing? So when it comes to spiritual things, who are you going to get advice from? People beneath you? People who don't know very much? People who got big mouths who think they know, but they don't? No, we'll go to our rabbinic authorities. Who are bona fide, the real deal rabbinic authorities, and we'll get advice from them. We're not going to act on our own. Acting on our own can put us in a dangerous situation. And we can cause problems to ourselves because, we made a mistake. We were, 614th commandment, don't be stupid, right? We made a mistake. So why didn't God stop us? Because He allowed it to happen. And, you're not going to have a claim after 120 years that God, He could have stopped me, could have this. Yeah, I could have, but I didn't. You made a mistake. You got to pay for what you did. These are the repercussions. Yeah, certain things I did, I did make you aware of, so therefore you didn't make a mistake. These are the mistakes, you made your own mistakes. So you're going to blame me for your own mistake? No. Sometimes the mistakes we make are our own. Or maybe a lot of times. And we get no one to blame but ourselves. And if we make a stupid mistake and the repercussions are whatever they are, it's because we made the mistake. They might say, well, my whole life I have to ask advice to do, certain things. Right? It depends what it is. Also, if it's something that's a gray area, if it's something that's not so clear cut, whether it's good or whether it's bad, yeah, you have to get other advice. But never should a person act or think they can act on their own. Right? They need to know what their place is. The Mishnah in Pirkei Avos, Ethics of Our Father, says know your place. What does know your place mean? It means if you don't know something, you have to go ask. You have to go to someone bigger than you. Knowing your place is being 100% honest where you are holding. And therefore, if you have a doubt about something, you have to go somewhere else to ask. You cannot rely on yourself because you're not sure. Right? You don't know. So if you don't know, you're going to guess? I don't think so. Certainly not if it's life and death. You're not going to guess. You're not going to take any chances. Right? In spiritual things, you never take chances. Why? Because if we take chances, then, there can be tremendous repercussions down the line. So, Phinehas might have done a great thing. Right? But again, clearly, we're not allowed to act on our own. In general. But then the Torah says, behold, I give you my covenant of peace. Where's the covenant of peace over here? Right, yeah. You got a piece of him, a piece of her. A couple pieces over there. Right? Shish kebab. Where's, shot him in the head. God saying, that brought such peace to the world. What do you mean? Guy acted on his own, seemingly, and killed them. Where's the peace? Now, keep in mind what happened before. Right? All these, there were 24,000 people that died, went after idolatry, and were killed. And then you have the story with Pinchas, and with Zimri and Kazbi Batsur, Cosby, the daughter of Tzur. So here Phinehas comes in and saves the day. Now, saving the day doesn't mean there's a happy ending, right? This is where people make the mistake, right? Phinehas came to save the day, and he stopped this terrible desecration of God's name. And for that, God says, what a symbol of peace. This is a symbol of peace I'm going to give him. Why? Now keep in mind, there are two forces that go on in the world on a constant basis. You have good versus evil, right? You have people who have a good inclination, they have a bad inclination, and they're both fighting, right? They're both fighting basically to the death, right? 24/7. Evil inclination doesn't rest. Not even on Shabbos, doesn't rest. So, you have these forces going on at all times. Because they go on at all times, when evil is vanquished, when the bad guy gets it, so to speak, so there's peace. Because it's not around anymore. Right? It's actually great joy. When an evil person dies, there's great joy in that. You're not allowed to be, happy at the death of our enemies. Right? The whole question about that. In this case, somebody, though, it doesn't apply to someone who leads others astray. Someone who leads others astray and, causes them to sin and causes them to go away from Torah. What that does is lose thousands of people in many generations of, less Torah observance. So someone who causes such a thing and he dies, so no greater joy than that. Doesn't matter how he dies. Right? It doesn't matter if he dies a horrible death or he dies in his sleep. When the person dies, that's a great joy. Because if they cause others, they cause 1,000 people to sin, to not uphold the standards that the Torah wants. Somebody like that is called Machtiyas Arabi. He causes others to go astray, loses a portion of the world to come. It's very, very severe. So make it a little more graphic. What about people of the other so-called movements? Reform movement, conservative movement, what are they doing? They're taking people away from Torah. Doesn't matter if they know something, if they know something, or they know less, or they know very little. At the end of the day, what's the end result? End result is they're taking away people from Torah. So they say, okay, so that's their choice. They have free will, 100%. But you see, God does not take too kind. It's one thing, a person goes astray himself. He doesn't want to keep Torah. He goes away. He breaks his own covenant with God. Okay, that's his choice. But then he goes out. All right, forget what he does himself. He's going to pay the price. But then he goes out and causes others to go astray. If he causes others to go astray, leave him alone. Who cares? Why do you have to go influence? Why do you have to, open your mouth? And spew out your philosophical, mumbo jumbo that doesn't work and cause others to go astray with you. It's one thing you do it. You cause others to go astray, that's 10 times worse. It's what Mr. JC did. One of the things that he did. That he was liable for the death penalty. Cause others to go astray. That's not, again, you may say, oh, that's fanatical. That's not so fanatical. You read the book, the good book, you go through the Torah, it's pretty clear. You do what God wants, that's fine. Everything is good. You don't do what God wants, obviously that's bad. But what happens, the whole point of the soul going in the body, the whole point is drawing close to God. Right? It says the Ramchal in Derech Hashem, in the way of God, that's the whole point. God gave you a soul, a GPS, a spiritual GPS, right? That's going to strive to be closer to God. That's why we do mitzvahs, right? That's the whole purpose of doing mitzvahs, to make the soul stronger, to overcome the body, to make us more spiritual. So the body doesn't want that. The body's going to fight tooth and nail against that. Okay, that's fine. And you have this, you have this conflict. But if that's the whole goal, is to strive close to God, that seems pretty clear. That's what God wants. And he wrote a book, manufactured it himself, gave it to the Jewish people, passed it down to Moshe. That's what we're supposed to do. Do godly things. Make blessings, blow the shofar, eat all that matzah in 35 seconds and whistle Dixie, sit in a sukkah when it's 40 below, like all these fun things that we're supposed to do that is supposed to draw our soul closer to him. All of a sudden you got one, or more than one, big time philosopher comes out and takes away thousands of people towards that. You can say, but that's his opinion. You have free will. You're right. We have free will. So the simple answer would be, so keep it to yourself. You want to make now a mass movement, and you want to take people away from serving God, right? That's Machti Esarabim. That's causing others to go astray. When you cause others to go astray, you forfeit thousands of generations of people that could have kept his Torah. And that is really the whole point. God gave the Torah not for people to go astray. He understands that can happen. He understands it will happen for some. But he doesn't want it as a mass movement. I can imagine God's thinking, I'm so glad there are these mass movements out there taking millions of people away from me. I can imagine you're just sitting there like, nah, 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 nah. Like, oh, that's great. I'm so happy at my creation. The angels are probably throwing like popcorn at the movie screen. If I get rid of these people, destroy them. God will take care of what he needs to take care of when he needs to. Right? Doesn't need my proverbial pat on the back. But you go against what he started and what he wants, there's a price to pay. Look what happened to Adam and Eve. They paid the eternal price. They turned the world upside down by eating from the tree. But they used their free will, 100%. God didn't want them to eat from the tree. That's why God has to throw them out of the Garden of Eden. Because if they eat from the tree of life, then that's it. They don't get they don't get fixed up. Their soul doesn't get fixed up by going through death. And going through some sort of suffering to atone for that. That wasn't in the plans, but obviously God allowed it to happen, and God had to change the world because of it. That's catastrophic. Right? The snake caused Eve. Eve caused, Adam to eat, and then God said, all right, everyone out of the pool. Everyone out of the garden, and threw them out. Now, that's pretty graphic. Pretty blatant. You tell me the snake, who's the evil inclination, who's the Malach HaMavis, who's the angel of death as well. Yeah, he's got his own purpose. His own purpose to make people make mistakes. But that's how we grow. Right? We overcome our evil inclination, we grow. So, you need something like that also. Obviously, we were set up in a different way at the beginning of creation. But of course, that's not the topic for now. The point is that you want to get other people to go astray, to go in your ways. Realize there's going to be a very serious price to pay. And that could cost you spiritual life. In the next world. So, it doesn't really matter whether they know a lot, they don't know a lot. They're causing people to go away from God. Right? From serving him the way they should. By keeping Shabbos, by keeping kosher. Then you say, but that's not what the rabbis meant, and that's not what the laws are. Forget all that. Right? We're not going to argue philosophy. Right? I never argue philosophy. Question is, how did God set up the world? Did God set up the world to serve him or not? Did God give the Jewish people the Torah or not? Or was it written up by a committee of 4 or 5 people, then redacted? Or the Jews ate the same hallucinogenic mushroom in the desert? Right? Maybe they're all high in the desert. That's where they came up with this stuff. Maybe. And all the miracles happened in Egypt because Saturn was out of orbit. Maybe. Or maybe it's the way the Torah said. But again, it seems pretty clear. God wants adherence to his Torah. And if you don't adhere to it the way he wants you to, you're going to pay a serious price. It's not what it meant. It's not what it... Let's say for argument's sake God is right. And the way God set it up is the way it's supposed to be. For argument's sake. If that's true, you don't do what you're supposed to do, there are repercussions. Right? Which nobody ever wants to hear. No one ever wants to hear there are repercussions. Sorry to say, there are repercussions. You don't do what God wants you to do, you're going to pay a price. You pay it either in this world or the next or both. Right? So you can twist your philosophical mumbo-jumbo however you want. The bottom line is, you cannot, as I'm always fond of saying, you cannot turn the Torah into a pretzel. It doesn't work. It's proven it doesn't work. Right? I mentioned this, a number of times. Not going to go into it now. It doesn't work. You can change as much as you want. You can say this is what it means or whatever. It doesn't work. 60% intermarriage, some places more. Right, over 70, some places 85% intermarriage rate. Torah illiteracy, 13 million Jews don't know anything about Torah. It doesn't work. So don't tell me we're going to bring Torah into the 20th century, the 21st century. It doesn't work. Let's look at the numbers. Numbers don't lie. I mean, maybe they do. We can doctor them. But in general, they don't lie. So, something like this that happens, and Pinchas goes on a limb, no pun intended, and goes against the norm because, Moshe forgot the halach and he remembers it, and he certainly could have been killed, no question. So God says, okay, these two people died. It was an absolute desecration of God's name. Right? Adultery, being with someone you're not allowed to, death penalty. Right? So if you get the death penalty, that's pretty severe. Ooh, is God a masochist? No, but there's a reality. If you do certain things, you're liable. Some things you'll be liable, only rabbinical lashing. Some things you'll be liable according to the Torah. You'll be stoned to death if there be a temple today. One of them being desecration of Shabbos. Right? If somebody warned you, hey, don't smoke that cigarette. It's, it's forbidden because, you're lighting you're making a fire. And making a fire is forbidden. Let's say that is what it's forbidden for, which probably is. Right? You get two witnesses. They see it. And you warn them, says, I don't care. I'm going to do it anyway. That's it. If there's a temple, you take them, push them off. That's it. It's done. Two witnesses, give testimony, finished. Kill them. Where's free will? You had free will. Right? You absolutely had free will. You took the cigarette, you smoked it. No one told you to do it. You did it of your own free will. So, those are the repercussions. We don't have a temple today. But don't you think you do something like that? Or you want to be immoral in front of everybody, especially if you're the king of a tribe, you don't think there are going to be serious repercussions? Why shouldn't there be repercussions? We live in an ownerless world. Lays din, lays dying. There's no judge, no judgment. God forbid. The problem is that people are afraid to take a stand. Pinchas wasn't afraid to take a stand. Today, people, want to be politically correct. People are afraid to say what the truth is. And someone who comes along and takes away thousands of people from Torah, and he's looked at as a hero. Not a hero. Just the opposite. Right? He's absolutely not a hero. He's looked down upon. When he dies, we should be dancing, whistling Dixie, because he's not around to hurt anybody. So somebody who does that, they any worse? I'm going to be a little bit, maybe more fanatical here. You might want to turn off. Is that any worse than the SS? What did the SS do? They killed, murdered. Right? Obviously that's bad. Right? Murdering is bad. But you see, what happens when you murder someone? They die. Right? It's pretty clear. Die. But they only die now. But you haven't taken away their olam haba. You have not taken away their life in the next world. Someone who causes others to go astray, to go away from Torah, they've taken away from the next world. Why? Because they take them away from God. They're taken away from serving Him. So isn't that worse? Killing Him, fine. You die in 1 second. That's not so bad because you still have the next world. Right? And the whole point is having your soul return as it came. In this world. But if it's been sullied and you've been convinced now by somebody who caused you to go astray, you bought into that, so you're liable. The person who did it is even more liable. So, yeah, you die in this world and you die in the next. You don't have the next world. So they say, that's fanatical. Right? Yes, it is. But at the end of the day, that is not as bad. You want to say that this person who looks, is looked at as a hero. That's not bad. Destroyed thousands of Jews. The heretical beliefs. Nothing worse than that. Doesn't matter who does it. You cause others to go astray. It's worse than putting a bullet in someone's head. Because the person only dies now. You say, oh, Jews only look at the next, Orthodox Jews only look at the next world. Not just looking at the next world. We're looking at what the soul is doing here. And what the purpose is. The purpose is drawing close to God. So if you take away from that, what happens? It's not good. You're not doing what God wants you to do. He gives you free will to make mistakes. Don't make the mistake. We can certainly make mistakes. But you want to be part of a movement or whatever. Whatever the philosophy is and cause others to go astray, realize what the price is. That means that there's no observance of anything. Or very little, if that. And what's going to be with their kids? Absolutely nothing. Right? They're not going to have, any Torah. They won't have mitzvahs. So you destroyed them. They don't have anything. They don't have anything that makes them a Jew. That distinguishes them from the nations. That's not bad. Well, he did it to himself. Maybe. Or maybe he's part of a movement that uprooted all that and took him away from Torah. Yeah, that's bad. And the people who do it, they're going to be a real serious price. And someone who's that charismatic and takes that many people away, yeah, there were many times in history that you had these terrible people and people whistling Dixie when they died. Very fanatical to say, 100%. No one's ever going to accuse me of ever being politically correct. Right? That you have no problem with. That I have no problem with. But that's the reality. And when someone someone like that comes along and does that, the results are catastrophic. So they destroy people in this world and they kill them in the next world. Comes along the Torah and God says, Phinehas did a good job. Why? You brought my covenant of peace. Covenant of peace means that you acted and you weren't afraid. You weren't afraid of what people were going to say. You're not afraid, people are going to call you a fanatic or whatever. You did what the Torah required. You didn't ask any questions. You did it for the sake of heaven. You made me proud. Right? Gave me honor. That's not like these stupid fanatics that are maiming and killing people for the sake of their God. That's not even comparable. They say, I'm doing it for Allah. Yeah. Major difference. So peace doesn't mean it always ends up nicely. But peace means that you bring God back to the world. That you do what the world was created for. Not for what we think the world is created for, and not for what we think, we should do. That the Torah itself is not made in man's eyes. right? Man didn't create it, and we didn't make it in our own eyes, the way we see it, right? Torah is divine. Torah is given by God, and what He wants and how He runs the world doesn't give us the right, to second guess. We have to do what He wants in order to draw ourselves close to Him. So I just want to remind people, I have a Derech Hashem class, Intro to Kabbalah, where now we're discussing about spiritual forces, demons, angels, etc. Tuesday nights, 9 o'clock Eastern Time, New York time. I also give conversion Noahide classes at Beyond Orthodox Conversion on Facebook, and Beyond Noahide. Also, I have a blog at orthodoxconversion.com, and anyone who wants to contact me, feel free at rabbichaimcoffman@gmail.com, RABBIChaimCoffman@gmail.com. Wishing everyone a great Shabbos.